You think you're living in the age of technology. You think computers are modern. You think ancient people were primitive, carving stone with bronze tools, worshipping gods they didn't understand. But what if I told you that, over 2,000 years ago, the Greeks built a machine so advanced, so impossibly complex, that when it was discovered, scientists thought it was a hoax, a device that shouldn't exist, a computer from the ancient world. This is the story of the Antikythera Mechanism, a corroded lump of bronze and wood pulled from a shipwreck at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. For decades, it sat in a museum drawer, ignored, misunderstood, labeled as nothing more than an ancient astrolabe or navigational tool. But when researchers finally looked inside, they found something that shattered everything we thought we knew about ancient technology. Gears, dozens of them, interlocking, precise, engineered with a level of sophistication that wouldn't be seen again for over 1,000 years. So the questions became unavoidable. What is this thing? Who built it? And why did the knowledge to create it completely vanish from history? How do we go from a civilization capable of building mechanical computers to the Dark Ages, where even basic engineering was forgotten? Is it possible that ancient Greece was far more technologically advanced than we've been taught? That we've lost an entire branch of human achievement? Or is there something even stranger at play here? Something that suggests this technology didn't originate on Earth at all. Let's go back to where it all started, to a group of sponge divers, a violent storm, and a discovery that would haunt science for over a century. The year was 1900. Spring. The Aegean Sea, just off the coast of the tiny Greek island of Antikythera, a jagged rock between Crete and mainland Greece. A crew of sponge divers from the island of Symi were heading home after months of work in North Africa. Captain Dimitrios Kondos and his men were experienced. Tough, they dove deep using primitive gear, rubberized suits, copper helmets, air pumped through hoses from the surface. Dangerous work. Men died regularly from the bends, drowning, or equipment failure. But a storm forced them to take shelter near Antikythera, and while they waited for the weather to clear, one of the divers, Elias Stadiatis, decided to go down and check for sponges. He descended about 150 feet into the clear blue water, and then he saw it. A shipwreck. Ancient, massive, scattered across the seafloor like a graveyard of history. When Stadiatis surfaced, the crew thought he'd gone mad. He was babbling about bodies, horses, twisted limbs and faces staring at him from the deep. They thought he had nitrogen narcosis, rapture of the deep. But Captain Kondos went down himself to see, and he came back up holding a bronze arm severed from a statue. They had found one of the richest archaeological shipwrecks in history. The Greek government was notified. For the next year, divers brought up statue after statue. Marble, bronze, pottery, jewelry, glassware. It was a treasure ship, likely Roman, dating back to somewhere between 70 and 60 BCE. It had been carrying looted art from Greece back to Rome when it sank. But among all the statues and pottery, there was one object that made no sense. A lump, corroded, encrusted with sea life, about the size of a shoebox. No one paid much attention to it at first. It was catalogued, stored, and forgotten in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. Then, months later, it cracked open, and inside were gears. Imagine the confusion. Ancient Greece wasn't supposed to have gears like this. Oh sure, they had simple machines, pulleys, levers, water wheels. But this was different. Inside the corroded bronze casing were over 30 interlocking gears, some with teeth so fine and precise they looked like they belonged in a Swiss watch. There were inscriptions, tiny Greek letters etched into the metal, dials, pointers, spiral scales. For years, no one knew what to do with it. Some thought it was an astrolabe, a tool for measuring the position of stars. Others suggested it was a navigational device. But the more they studied it, the less sense it made, because this wasn't just a tool. It was a machine, a calculator, a mechanical prediction device that could track the movements of the sun, the moon, and the planets, with shocking accuracy. In fact, it wasn't until 1959, nearly 60 years after its discovery, that a British science historian named Derek de Solla Price took a serious look at it. And what he found changed everything. Price spent over 2 decades studying the Antikythera Mechanism. He X-rayed it. He traced every gear. He deciphered the inscriptions. And in 1974, he published a paper that stunned the academic world. He called it the most sophisticated mechanical device from antiquity. He said it was, without question, an ancient analog computer. But here's the thing. According to everything we know about the history of technology, this device shouldn't exist. Geared mechanisms like this don't show up again in human history until the 14th century, over 100-300 years later. It's as if someone in ancient Greece had a smartphone, and then the entire concept of electronics was forgotten until the 1990s. It makes no sense, unless everything we've been taught about the ancient world is incomplete, or worse, deliberately hidden. Let's talk about what this thing could actually do. Because when modern scientists rebuilt digital models of the Antikythera mechanism using cutting-edge imaging and X-ray tomography, they were floored. Evidence Layer 1. Astronomical precision. The device could predict the position of the sun and moon with extraordinary accuracy. It tracked the phases of the moon. It could calculate eclipses, both solar and lunar, years in advance. It even accounted for the irregularities in the moon's orbit, something called the lunar anomaly, which requires understanding elliptical orbits. The ancient Greeks weren't supposed to know about elliptical orbits. That's Kepler. That's the 17th century. But they did, and they built it into a machine. Evidence Layer 2. The Gears 30 interlocking bronze gears, some with as many as 223 teeth. The craftsmanship is so fine that researchers believe it was made using techniques similar to those used by medieval clockmakers. But this was made 1,500 years before the first mechanical clocks. One researcher, Michael Wright, a former curator at London's Science Museum, spent years reconstructing the mechanism. He said, "Whoever made this was a genius. This is not primitive. This is as sophisticated as anything made in the 18th century." Evidence Layer 3. The inscriptions. There are over 3,000 characters inscribed on the mechanism. Tiny letters, instructions, descriptions of astronomical phenomena, names of months, references to athletic games, likely the Olympic Games and other pan-Hellenic festivals. It was a calendar, a cosmic clock, a manual for understanding time itself. Evidence Layer 4. The Saros cycle. One of the dials tracks something called the Saros cycle, a period of approximately 18 years, 11 days, and 8 hours, after which eclipses repeat. This cycle was known to the Babylonians, but seeing it engineered into a Greek machine suggests a transfer of knowledge across empires, across languages, across centuries. Who taught the Greeks this, and what else did they know? Evidence Layer 5. The planet's recent research suggests the device may have also tracked the positions of the 5 planets known to the ancient world: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. If true, that means this machine was a complete model of the cosmos as the Greeks understood it, a mechanical orrery, a universe in a box, and all of this was built by hand. No electricity, no computers, no modern tools, just bronze, genius, and knowledge that, by all accounts, shouldn't have existed yet. But not everyone was convinced. When Derek de Solla Price first published his findings, mainstream historians were skeptical. They said he was overreaching, that he was romanticizing a simple astrolabe, that the ancient Greeks, while brilliant, were philosophers and mathematicians, not engineers. Critics pointed out that there's no other device like this from the ancient world. Not one. If the Greeks could build something this advanced, where are the others? Where are the workshops, the blueprints, the writings that describe how to make it? Ancient texts mention automatons, mechanical theaters, and even a steam engine built by Hero of Alexandria. But nothing like the Antikythera mechanism. Some said it was a one-off. a fluke, built by a single genius and lost when the ship sank. Others suggested it might be a later Roman forgery, made to look ancient. And a few, though they wouldn't say it out loud, wondered if it was even real. For years, the doubt lingered. The mechanism sat in the museum, fragmentary and mysterious, while scientists argued over what it meant. Was it proof of a lost golden age of technology? Or just an anomaly we couldn't yet explain? Then came the imaging. In 2005, a team of international researchers launched the Antikythera Mechanism research project. They brought in equipment that didn't exist when Price did his work: polynomial texture mapping, 3D X-ray microtomography. Basically, they could now see inside the mechanism without touching it. Every gear, every inscription, every hidden layer. And what they found left them speechless. The device was even more complex than Price had imagined. There were gears within gears, epicyclic gearing, a system where gears rotate around other gears, something that wasn't supposed to appear in human engineering until the Renaissance. The inscriptions revealed an instruction manual, a user's guide. This wasn't a decorative object, it was meant to be used, and whoever built it expected others to understand it. One researcher, Professor Tony Freeth, said, "This is more complex than any other object we have from antiquity. It's in a class of its own." But here's what really got people's attention. The mechanism wasn't just built, it was mass-produced, or at least it was designed with the intent to be replicated. The inscriptions suggest there were others, variants, copies, which means somewhere at some point there was an entire tradition of mechanical astronomy in ancient Greece that we've completely lost. But what if the skeptics were wrong? What if we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg? What if the Greeks didn't invent this at all, but inherited it? Now we enter dangerous territory, the kind of ideas that get you laughed out of academic conferences. But hear me out. What if the Antikythera mechanism wasn't built by the Greeks at all? What if it's evidence of something older? Something we don't have a name for yet? Some researchers, particularly those in the ancient astronaut community, have suggested that the mechanism could be reverse-engineered alien technology, that extraterrestrial visitors shared knowledge with ancient civilizations and the Greeks simply tried to replicate what they were shown. It sounds insane, until you consider how many ancient cultures have myths about gods descending from the sky and teaching humanity mathematics, astronomy, agriculture, and engineering. The Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki. The Egyptians had Thoth. The Mayans had Quetzalcoatl. The Hindus described flying machines called Vimanas. All of them said the same thing: beings from above gave us knowledge. And then there's this. In the 1970s, a Swiss author named Erich von Däniken popularized the idea that many ancient technologies were gifts, or cargo, left behind by extraterrestrial visitors. The Antikythera mechanism, he argued, was proof. How else could a Bronze Age civilization create something that wouldn't be matched for over a millennium? Others suggest it's evidence of a lost super-civilization, not aliens, not gods, but humans. An advanced pre-Greek culture, perhaps Atlantis, perhaps Minoan, perhaps something even older, that achieved technological heights we can't imagine, only to be wiped out by cataclysm, leaving behind only fragments. The mechanism, they say, is one of those fragments. Is it possible that somewhere in our forgotten past, humans built machines, cities, computers, and then it all collapsed, buried beneath the sea or sand, erased by time? Or maybe the truth is simpler but just as unsettling. Maybe the Greeks were far more advanced than we've ever given them credit for. Maybe our entire understanding of technological progress is wrong. And here's where it gets even stranger. The Antikythera mechanism isn't the only out-of-place artifact. Consider the Baghdad Battery, a clay jar found in Iraq that some believe was an ancient galvanic cell, capable of producing electricity over 2,000 years ago. Mainstream science dismisses it, but it exists. Consider Greek fire, a weapon used by the Byzantine Empire that could burn on water and whose formula was so closely guarded that it was lost to history, we still don't know exactly what it was. Consider the Lycurgus cup, a Roman glass chalice that changes color depending on the light. It's embedded with nanoparticles of gold and silver. Nanotechnology, in the 4th century AD. Consider the Baghdad map, a set of ancient clay tablets that some claim show an advanced understanding of geography, possibly even aerial views of the land. Are these coincidences, flukes, or evidence of a broader hidden layer of ancient knowledge that we've only just started to uncover? Across the ancient world, from Greece to China, from India to Central America, there are stories of machines, flying crafts, advanced metallurgy, precision engineering. Most are dismissed as mythology, but what if they're memories? Fragments of something real passed down through generations until they became legend? The ancient Hindu text, the Mahabharata, describes weapons that sound like nuclear bombs. The Ramayana talks about flying machines with intricate controls. Coincidence, imagination, or oral history of a forgotten age? And all of it leads back to the same question. How much have we lost? Because here's the thing. The Antikythera Mechanism wasn't just lost, it was erased. Think about it. Sometime around the 1st century BCE, this device, and presumably others like it, existed. There were people who knew how to build it, how to use it, how to read the stars with mechanical precision, and then nothing. The knowledge disappeared. The workshops closed, the craftsmen died, and for over 1,000 years, humanity forgot that such things were even possible. What happened? Some point to the fall of the Roman Empire, the collapse of trade routes, the burning of the Library of Alexandria, where countless works of science, philosophy, and engineering were destroyed. Scholars estimate that 90% of ancient Greek literature has been lost. Entire schools of thought erased. Others point to natural disasters, earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions. The ancient world was violent and unstable. Entire cities could vanish overnight, and with them, their knowledge. But there's another darker possibility. What if the knowledge wasn't lost by accident? What if it was suppressed? Throughout history, powerful institutions have controlled information. The Catholic Church in medieval Europe banned certain texts, certain ideas. Ancient rulers hoarded knowledge to maintain power. Secret societies, from the Pythagoreans to the Freemasons, claimed to guard hidden wisdom. Could it be that the knowledge to build devices like the Antikythera Mechanism was intentionally buried, hidden away to keep it from the masses? We may never know. But what we do know is this. In a single generation, maybe two, the ability to create mechanical computers vanished from human civilization, and it wouldn't return for over a millennium. Imagine if, tomorrow, we lost the ability to build smartphones, or airplanes, or engines, and by 1,500 years from now, someone dug one up and had no idea what it was. That's what happened to the Antikythera Mechanism, and it should terrify us. Of course, mainstream science has explanations, rational ones. They say the Antikythera Mechanism is impressive, yes, but not impossible. The Greeks were brilliant mathematicians. They understood geometry, astronomy, mechanics. Archimedes invented the screw pump. Ctesibius built water clocks. Hero of Alexandria created the first vending machine and a steam-powered engine. So, why not a geared astronomical calculator? Scholars argue that the mechanism is the pinnacle of Greek engineering, but not evidence of lost super-civilizations or alien contact. It's simply proof that ancient people were smarter and more capable than we give them credit for. That our modern arrogance makes us assume they were primitive, when in fact, they were sophisticated, curious, and inventive. Geologically, there's no evidence of a global advanced civilization that predates known history. Linguistically, the Greek inscriptions on the mechanism match the language and terminology of the time. Astronomically, everything it calculates aligns with Babylonian and Greek knowledge of the cosmos. So case closed, right? It's just a brilliant Greek invention, Rare, yes. Anomalous, sure. But explainable. Except, if it's explainable, why are there no others? Why is this the only one? And why, in over 2,000 years of recorded history, did no one ever mention building something like this again? The Roman engineer Vitruvius wrote extensively about machines. The Roman scholar Pliny documented countless inventions. But neither mentions anything remotely like the Antikythera Mechanism. Cicero briefly describes a device built by Archimedes that showed the motions of the heavens. But is that the same thing? We don't know. The device he described is lost, so we're left with a paradox. Either the Antikythera Mechanism is a one-of-a-kind genius creation, made once and never replicated, or it's part of a broader tradition of technology that has been completely erased from the historical record. And if the latter is true, what else did we lose? Let's consider the middle ground. Maybe the Antikythera Mechanism isn't evidence of aliens or Atlantis, but maybe it's proof that ancient Greece was far more technologically advanced than our textbooks admit. After all, we know the Greeks had access to knowledge from Egypt, Babylon, Persia, and India. Trade routes connected the entire ancient world. Ideas flowed. Knowledge was shared. It's possible that the mechanism represents a convergence of wisdom from multiple civilizations, assembled into one device by a Greek master craftsman. Some researchers believe it was built on the island of Rhodes, home to the Colossus and a major center of learning. Others think it came from Corinth, or perhaps Syracuse, the home of Archimedes. Whoever built it had access to the best minds of the age. And maybe, just maybe, they were part of a secret guild, a group of engineers and astronomers who passed their knowledge down in private, away from public record. If so, that knowledge died with them, perhaps in a war, perhaps in a purge, perhaps simply because they didn't write it down, relying instead on apprenticeship and oral tradition. And when the last master died, the knowledge died too. It's a haunting thought. That genius can be so fragile that an entire branch of human achievement can vanish in a single generation, leaving behind only a corroded lump of bronze at the bottom of the sea. But there's another interpretation. Some researchers suggest the mechanism was symbolic, not practical, that it was built to demonstrate philosophical ideas about the cosmos, not to actually predict eclipses. A teaching tool, a work of art, a meditation on the order of the universe. If true, that makes it no less impressive. But it shifts the meaning. It suggests that the Greeks valued knowledge for its beauty, not just its utility. That they built this machine not because they needed it, but because they could, because understanding the heavens was sacred. And maybe that's the real loss, not the technology, but the mindset, the belief that knowledge itself is divine. So here's what I want you to consider. Right now, you're holding a device in your hand, or sitting in front of one, that's more powerful than anything the ancient Greeks could have imagined. You can access the sum of human knowledge in seconds. You can talk to people across the world. You can navigate, calculate, create. But could you build it? If civilization collapsed tomorrow, could you recreate the technology you rely on every day? Could you explain how a computer works? How a car engine runs? How a phone connects to a satellite? Probably not. Most of us couldn't. We use technology, but we don't understand it. We've outsourced knowledge to specialists, to factories, to systems so complex that no single person comprehends the whole. The Greeks who built the Antikythera Mechanism understood it. Every gear, every calculation, every movement of the heavens. They didn't just use knowledge, they owned it. And maybe that's the real message here. Not that ancient people were primitive, but that we've become dependent, that we've traded deep understanding for convenience, and that if something happened, if the power went out, if the internet collapsed, if the systems we rely on failed, we'd be just as lost as the people who found the Antikythera Mechanism and had no idea what it was. What if we're living in a cycle, a pattern that's repeated throughout history? Civilizations rise. They achieve incredible things, and then they fall. And the next generation looks at the ruins and can't believe their ancestors were capable of such brilliance. The Egyptians built the pyramids, and later Egyptians didn't know how. The Romans built aqueducts and roads that lasted millennia, and medieval Europeans couldn't replicate them. The Greeks built a mechanical computer, and it took us 2,000 years to understand it. So what are we building now that will be lost? What knowledge are we creating that our descendants won't be able to recover? And what lies buried beneath the earth, beneath the sea, waiting to remind us that we've been here before? The Antikythera Mechanism is more than an artifact. It's a mirror. It reflects our own fragility, our own impermanence. It reminds us that no matter how advanced we become, we're always one catastrophe away from forgetting everything. And it asks a simple, terrifying question. How many times have we had to start over? Think about this. Right now, at this very moment, there are shipwrecks scattered across the ocean floor. Hundreds of them, thousands, and we've explored less than 5% of the world's oceans. What else is down there? What other impossible devices? What other lost knowledge waiting in the dark? The Antikythera Mechanism was found by accident. A group of divers seeking sponges stumbled onto one of the most important discoveries in the history of technology. Pure chance. If that storm hadn't forced them to stop at that island, if that diver hadn't gone down, if that ship had sunk 100 feet deeper, we might never have known it existed. So, what else are we missing? What other pieces of our forgotten past are lying just out of reach, waiting for someone to find them? And when we do find them, will we be ready to accept what they tell us about who we were and who we might have been? The ancient Greeks looked up at the stars and didn't just wonder. They calculated, they built, they understood. And then, for reasons we still don't fully grasp, that knowledge vanished. The lights went out, and humanity stumbled through centuries of darkness before we remembered how to see. But the mechanism survived, against all odds. Against time, saltwater, corrosion, and neglect, it survived. And now it sits in a museum in Athens, a silent testament to brilliance lost and found. So I'll leave you with this. What do you believe? Do you think the Antikythera Mechanism was just a brilliant Greek invention? A one-time masterpiece lost to history? Or is it evidence of something bigger? A lost age of technology? A hidden tradition of knowledge? Or maybe even something stranger, a gift from beyond, a remnant of a world we don't yet understand? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what you think happened. Tell me what you believe. Because the truth is, we don't know, not for certain. And maybe that's the most beautiful and terrifying part of all. The Antikythera Mechanism sits in Athens, its gears frozen in time, holding secrets we're still trying to decode. And somewhere, deep beneath the waves, or buried in the earth, there may be others, waiting. Silent. Ready to shatter everything we think we know. The question is, are we ready to find them?